Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Around the Valley, your number one stop for Valley sports coverage. I'm your host, Will Zimmerman, and joining me today, fresh from the Sunshine State, is my co-host for the season, Mr. Kyle Miklinevich.
How you doing, Will?
Before we jump into this week's debate, I would briefly like to go over how the show works. Kyle and I will run through a multitude of sports topics, expounding all of our knowledge onto each other, as well as you, the viewer. At the end of each show, our wonderful crew is going to get 30 seconds to vote on which of us out-debated the other one, thus determining this week's People's Champion. With that, let's jump into our first topic. Fresh off of a Super Bowl win, the Baltimore Ravens took down the San Francisco 49ers in this year's Super Bowl. I want to get your reaction on the game, see what you felt, how the quarterbacks played. Let's see what you got.
Well, I thought it was a good game. Obviously, it's a long season, so both teams are fighting really hard. Both really good defenses. We talked about that ourselves beforehand. It turned out that it was an offensive game, which I was pretty surprised about. There were some big turning points at the beginning of the second half when Jacoby Jones took it all the way back to the house. Then obviously the power outage, which was tough on both sides. The Ravens thought that they were scheming against them there a little bit, but actually came out recently that the Superdome. They intended that they thought they might have some sort of power outage just because of the way that things were structured and the amount of electricity going through.
Yeah.
But basically, the Ravens pulled it out late in the end. The 49ers weren't able to come back. I picked the 49ers myself, so I was a little bit more surprised. And as a Patriots fan, I really hate seeing the Ravens win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But Ray Lewis, it's his last game of his career, so there's definitely a storyline there for some years to come.
And it's a cool way to go out. It's the John Elway style to go out on.
Right.
You got to leave as a champion. But I want to talk about this. The play calls at the end of the game. Jim Harbaugh, what are you thinking? You have what I would consider the quarterback equivalent of Megatron.
Exactly.
And you throw the ball 4 times. You got a great running game, a great offensive line, and you have a quarterback that it takes him like 1 step to run about 4 yards. I didn't understand it. I wanted to see what you think about Joe Flacco, though, because he's gotten a ton of criticism for being kind of a lackluster QB. And even in this game, he had a couple of Hail Marys that were just, Anquan Boldin made that unbelievable catch on the back shoulder. Yep. So do you think that Flacco's the real deal?
I've never been from the school of thought that Joe Flacco was an elite quarterback. Having watched Tom Brady since I was a young boy, Tom Brady I grew up with him, and he's just the epitome of the franchise quarterback. Joe Flacco has the measurables. He's, an easy 6'5", 6'6", throws the ball a mile. He's got great arm strength. No one's debating that. His regular season record has been, mediocre at best.
Right.
But for some reason, when he gets in the postseason, he hasn't won the whole thing yet before this year. But when he gets into the postseason, his team plays incredible. And there's the hard defense. They have a good running game in Ray Rice. He's one of the best running backs. Unfortunately, I feel like they don't use him enough.
No.
But either way, Joe Flacco he uses his tight end. He has got a great wide receiver in Anquan Boldin, a great deep threat in Torrey Smith. So he definitely has the pieces around him to be an elite quarterback for the next couple of years. But is he going to get paid the money? Is he going to make the $20 million is the question.
Exactly. Personally, I'm right there with you. I don't think he's an elite quarterback. In all honesty, I think that he just really he just doesn't epitomize any of what an elite quarterback is. It's a play-action offense. It's 2 guys going deep down the field with a tight end coming over the middle. 56% of the time, Ray Rice is getting the ball in the regular season, and then all of a sudden he disappears in the postseason, which was very odd. Just like I wanted to draw that point out too. But he's a lucky quarterback. If Denver's safety knocks the ball down, the Ravens aren't even in the Super Bowl.
Right.
So I don't personally think that he is the real deal. I feel that he has a lot of growing to do. He's got an unbelievable team. If you stick him on a different team, he's not going to be the one carrying you to the Super Bowl. So I don't know. I don't know. It didn't seem to. Oh man, I wish it was a better quarterback that won the Super Bowl. I guess is where I'm going with
even
this.
The way that the game went, you didn't feel like either of them dominated the game. Joe Flacco won the MVP, but at the same time, if I was voting, I would have given it to Jacoby Jones in a heartbeat. You catch a 56-yard touchdown, and then you take 108 to the house.
Right.
At the beginning of the second half, that's the MVP right there. And there's no discussion. And that's why the NFL is such a quarterback-oriented league.
And it's too bad too. And I mean, especially towards the end when you had, we'll flip over to the 49ers. It's a quarterback-driven league. You have the quarterback. Use that quarterback. Mm-hmm. Don't give it up to a looping pass in the corner of the end zone that might have had a pass interference call, might not have had a pass. I don't know. It just.
Well, that's another thing that we wanted to talk about is how the refs called that game so loosely the entirety of the game, which you always preach for consistency. That's what you want from a referee. But at the same time, if you're going to call defensive pass interference, on outrageous calls, egregious even, in the regular season, and you see a blatant holding outside the chest plate on Michael Crabtree there, you need to call that.
I come from the opinion, actually, in all honesty, that it is a big game. Put your whistles away, and as long as they were consistent, and they were. The one time I would have liked to see them be a little bit more flippant with the whistles was when that fight broke out. You got to keep control of the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl. Everybody's watching. You can't. It's kind of fun to see chippy things going on, but at the same time, there was a couple of punches. You got to flag some people and let you know that you're there.
Off.
But I didn't mind how they called the game. It was, was there pass interference? Maybe, but they let the players decide it all the way through.
And both of those teams they pride themselves on their defense.
Right.
I would obviously not want to get hit by anybody in the NFL, but there's a couple players on both of those teams that you definitely don't want to see them on the other side.
Yeah.
Bernard Pollard has injured a number of Patriots. Terrell Suggs is humongous.
Yeah.
280 pounds, only 8 months after a torn Achilles. How does that happen? I don't know. But either way, some large men on that field, and and it was a tough game to call. I wouldn't be able to call.
That's the thing, you kind of want to see him put it away, and obviously Jim Harbaugh was pretty annoyed with the call at the end of the game. Was it pass interference? I mean, by definition of the rule, maybe. But you know what? For that play call, I was so okay with seeing that be the outcome.
Fourth and goal from your own.
You shouldn't be throwing it.
Line.
You shouldn't be throwing it up.
No.
A jump ball should not be your play call. And I was, and you can't leave it to the officials, and he wanted that, and they weren't going to be the ones to pull the whistle out. And they were consistent.
Right.
They were consistent. It's all you want out of the referees.
Yeah. Harbaugh, he's like you said in the press conference, he was very upset with that call. But I think as a good coach, you just said, don't let the officials take over, rule the game.
Exactly.
Don't put them in that position. Like you want to, be the Super Bowl champion. You need to beat the Ravens by 2 touchdowns and not even have it come into effect.
Exactly. And
so you can't really complain, I guess.
And he's just annoying to watch. My God, he complains on everything.
So demonstrative about everything.
Oh my God, everything's the ref's fault. Everything is always the ref's fault. All right, we're gonna move on here. We're gonna go over to the NHL. We're going to do a little bit of a season overview, see what you get, your take on, how things are shaping up in the West. Kind of like surprises here. It's early, but it is, it's been a very competitive season so far.
It has.
So what do you think?
The NHL, I'm glad that it's back, obviously. After watching the Bruins a couple years ago win the Stanley Cup and really get on board with all the other fans, it's been fun to watch the first couple games of the season. It's a shortened season, 48 games, so you need to win every night. There's no, 82 games is a shorter season as it is. To have it condensed to 48 games on a condensed schedule, you're playing every night. I think you definitely need to come out strong, and the Bruins have done that so far. They've set the tone physically with some fights. Sean Thornton, Greg Campbell, they're all getting into their game, which is good. And the Bruins are offensively, they're putting up numbers. The Sagan, Bergeron, Marchand line has been really effective. Good on the forecheck. I like Dougie Hamilton. He's young. He's 19 years old, but he's got a lot of points so far. He's got 4 assists, a couple goals. So it's good to see him, especially out there. He gets to play with Seidenberg, and Chara can play with Boychuk, which gives them a little bit more flexibility there. On the penalty kill, exactly. Yeah. They're both big boys, 6'5". So I like seeing that. Tuukka's been playing well, and Kuda Bean actually played well that one game that he got to start. He should be starting again soon because they have 3 days off and they play again. Against the Habs actually on Wednesday, which we wanted to talk about. Exciting game. I always think the Bruins are going to come out on top because that's my my fanhood coming out of me. But it's definitely going to be a tough game because Carey Price is proven to be one of the best goalies in the league. And they always play him tough.
And I mean they're a point behind us. They're sitting in the standings 1 point behind us. They're ripping. They're playing very good hockey. The difference is they haven't had an overtime loss and we have, and so they didn't get that 1 point. The Bees stack up well. For especially for this game, I think the first 2 lines that they have are so dramatically different, but are so effective. You have a small, quick, incredibly smart line with a very good playmaker in Sagan and on the line of Marchand, Sagan, and Bergeron.
Right.
You have a thinker in the middle of the ice with Bergeron, and then they come out and whack you with the second line that's about as big as redwood trees.
Exactly.
Guys they're huge.
Lucic.
Yeah, Lucic, you got
Krejci.
Horton and Krejci. And I mean, Krejci's kind of a soft, European boy, but man, those other 2 guys, they're coming out, they're headhunting.
That's a first line in almost any other team.
Any given night, that's your. Exactly. It depends on who you're banging around. So I think we'll look to see Wednesday's game be a banger. Obviously, during the taping of this show, it hasn't happened yet. So I want to get your pick. Who do you think?
Okay, I believe the Bruins are going to win. I just think that they have too much speed on offense. They're too solid on defense. I don't think I see them losing this game. So I'm going to go with the Bruins.
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow you with the Bruins. It's an emotional game. It's going to be fun. Bringing back a little emotion with the NFL, the NFL going away. I also want to get into the Western Conference. I want to see what you feel like, strong teams. Obviously, the Blackhawks still haven't lost yet.
It's going to be a problem.
They're flying. Patty Kane's out there flying around, scoring goals. And then, San Jose's right on their heels. They lost last night, I believe, or the night before for their first loss. And, they got 17 points in 9 games. It's absurd.
Unheard of, yeah.
Yeah, so, let's get your take on the Western Conference.
The Western Conference, they always play tough. It's always tough for the Eastern Conference teams to go out there on the road because it's a lot of travel and those things weigh, especially in the short season. You can't talk about it enough. The short season is really going to affect game planning. People trying to stay healthy. People are going to get days off. You have routine maintenance for the playoffs because you need your players ready for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Period, point blank. But like you said, the Blackhawks playing really well. Love Patrick Kane. He's so fast. He's so good with the puck. And the same with the Sharks. You miss seeing Joe Thornton because he was such a good player for the Bruins, but they did get some pieces for him. It's good to see him still playing at a high level with those guys out there in the West. And obviously you have to watch out for the Kings, the reigning national champs. They have Jonathan Quicks, who's a really good goalie, and Drew Doughty, who, I'll gush about him in NHL 2013 as much as I can. So definitely fun to watch. I'm just glad hockey's back.
I know, right? And it's so good to see. And yeah, it's been an interesting season so far with so many teams jumping off so fast and getting off to very, very quick starts. And you'd figure that some would say, but they would have a slow start. And so many teams are unbeaten right now.
I probably see some teams slowing down considerably the next couple of weeks.
Oh,
it just
absolutely.
catches up to you. It's nice playing every day. I've heard some guys like Daniel Pye say he likes playing every day. He likes getting in that groove. But at the same time, as a 30-plus athlete, your body's gonna shut down faster. It's hard to keep yourself in shape.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting. It's unprecedented. We've never seen it before. So we'll see what happens here in the next couple.
Games. It's going to be and one thing that with the NHL coming back, they made a couple of rule changes, and it's been very interesting to see how those play out. You can tell obviously the league is trying very hard to get more power plays, more goals. That's one great way to do it. It's exciting. It's cool to see special teams out there because your special teams is I think our first line special teams is Horton, Krejci, Sagan, Bergeron on D, and Chara. Those are the guys you want to see on the ice.
It sounds good on paper, but on the ice they haven't been too good. In the last 2 seasons, the power play for the Bruins hasn't been very good, and it's been an issue. People don't want to watch them on the power play because they're so much better on even ice. But like some other teams, with a lot more skill players on the outside, they're dominate the power play. Like the Red Wings, for instance.
Absolutely.
So many skill players that just dominate the power play, and if you get a man down, you're going to be a goal down, which is
and it's just been interesting the way that they've been doing it. It's almost like they're taking some of the physicality out. Personally, as a hockey player, I don't like to see the way they're calling interference.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Just the play where you chip it around the boards and you can skate around the guy. You can no longer even make any contact as a defensive player, which is a problem. Because you've seen so many chippy calls like that where the guy just tries to skate around to the boards. Gets touched with the glove. Seidenberg got called from him the other night, and that's all he could have done.
Yeah, it's really too bad, and it's going to take the hip check kind of out of the game, I think. It's an art to come over to the blue line, as a defenseman and let the puck pass and play the body. That's what you're told, growing up. Play the body, play the man. If he's too fast, just, get him on the boards, ride him into the boards, hit him. And it's such a touchy call. Interference, it's like what – I guess – you can argue that they're trying to make the league safer. You want big players on teams to be on the ice, and if they're getting all these huge hits, but those aren't the hits that are the ones that are taking guys out of the games. Those are hip checks along the high boards. They don't even hurt that bad. Most of the time, the defenseman's going down, but it's going to pick up the scoring, both in the fact that skill guys can fly. Alex Ovechkin's going to benefit from this 1,000 times over.
Yep.
He just chip it and go. And the other thing, exactly, Sagan, one of the fastest guys in the league, they're just going to chip it and go. And then, and it's also going to affect it because if the D does just get beat, they're taking a penalty. And you're going to have your special teams out there. So, I don't know. I don't personally like it.
I like seeing the game called as I've seen it, in the past. And, if people watching even the sport from 30 years ago, they're going to say, just like the NFL, they're taking the hits out of it, they're taking the physicality out of it. But I understand from a PR standpoint, you have to do something about the rules. They have to change them to a certain extent. I just don't agree with the way they've been enforcing it. And I'm sure over the course of the season and the postseason, they'll revert back to their natural way of calling the game, which is let the boys play a little bit.
Let them hit,
because you just want to keep everybody healthy for the first couple of weeks, get the season off right. You don't want to have anybody upset about the lockout, that kind of thing. So I understand I'm not happy about it, but I definitely understand.
Yeah, let the boys bang. That's what I'm thinking of.
Talking about poor officiating, we're going to go over, talk about the NBA for a couple minutes. The
Love the
Celtics,
segue.
the Celtics have lost Rajon Rondo, their star point guard. He tore his ACL. He's out for the season. They also lost Jared Sullinger recently with a back injury, which was actually the same back injury that he had previously, which dropped his draft stock so low. So the Celtics were able to get him in the bottom of the first round. Obviously, you're worried about that originally. You're worried about anything flaring up and that kind of like an injury underlying in your draftee, but they got some use out of him, and he definitely showed some real talent, some rebounding, which we needed, some offensive touch, which is good from a guy his size. But those are definitely big losses. Yeah. And like we were talking about, they have won 4 games since Rondo's gone down, and people like to talk about, are they going to be a better team once Rondo's gone? In theory, if you don't have to guard Rondo on the perimeter because he can't shoot the jump shot. Yeah. He's gonna dribble by you in the interior. He's gonna slash. He's gonna make great moves to the basket, and you have to live with those. But you don't have to guard him on the outside of the floor. So if you're putting a point guard who they have to guard, like Courtney Lee, they have to guard his shot because he can shoot from the outside. Right. All of a sudden, you pull a little bit of defender out of the paint, and you have a little bit more space for Kevin Garnett, Jeff Green, who's a slasher, those kind of guys, to maybe catch the ball and slash, go to the hoop. So I definitely see them playing well. Maybe not. They're not a better team by any means by losing one of the best point guards in the game. You can never say that. But they're definitely going to not struggle as much as people might think. People who aren't, watching the games and seeing how they're playing.
Yeah, I'm in the camp, kind of, for it. I mean, you're losing a top 3 point guard. You can't replace him. Right. And the thing that I always like to point out is, and he's admitted this himself, is that you don't have to guard him on the perimeter, and so you can drop a guy. But for him, that's like reading his own defense. Exactly. He can just see the floor, and that guy seeing the floor, it's 2 points. It may as well be him scoring. So I guess you can never lose a guy and be better. I mean, you could theoretically. The team could come together. This is a group of veteran guys. Yeah, this is a very veteran basketball team, and they can play. And now Paul Pierce is going to have the ball at the end of the game, like he had against the Clippers the other night. Took the shot fearlessly, went in. They're going to be the bottom of the pack. I mentioned this last week. They were always going to be in the bottom of the pack this year, and I think without Rondo, it's not going to be as easy for us to move through the playoffs, but nobody wants to see our team in a 7-game series. We're bigger than, we can just play, we're going to just shut you down in the paint. We're going to shut you down on defense, and we're going to bang you around. Right. Boston sports.
I mean, you never want to see Kevin Garnett in a 7-game series.
Never.
The intensity alone, his team and the energy that he brings is going to be the top level. And if you don't bring that same energy, then you're going to get run out of the building. And they've showed it last year when no one thought they were a good team coming down the stretch. Yep. And they get into the playoffs, all of a sudden they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They end up losing. Still a great run for a team that's, average age was 30 plus easily. So you lose Ray Allen, and you lose a couple key guys to injury here. Avery Bradley's been out since the beginning of the season. He's back now.
Right. Guy is glass, dude.
He's a great
defender. Love him,
defender.
but he's glass. We're going to leave basketball, and we're going to go to our little hiatus here for this is one of the favorite things in the world for big baseball fans. The Red Sox truck left today for spring training, so the season's right around the corner.
Here we go.
Let's get your take on how the Sox are stacking up.
Yeah, well, last year was tough for the Red Sox. Everyone can agree with that. I think watching them dismantle their roster to create some payroll was tough to see, especially after trading so much to get Adrian Gonzalez and to pay so much money for Carl Crawford and Josh Beckett, who won them, a World Series. Well, they didn't win the World Series, but he was on the team when they won a World Series. It was a big piece of that trade, the Mike Lowell trade, where they let go of Hanley Ramirez. So it's kind of the end of the changing of an era from the chicken and beer era, you can call it, I guess. But I don't think they're going to be as bad as everyone thinks they are. The Toronto Blue Jays, they made some serious moves this offseason. They made a couple trades. They claimed, I think it was like 10 people off waivers, signed them to major league or minor league contracts. The Yankees obviously got to worry about them always. The Rays, they traded James Shields. They ended up getting Will Allen, who's a really good prospect from them. Yep. And the Orioles, I feel like they're not going to be quite as good as they were last year, because of the amount of wins the games they won in the 9th inning and walk-off style, things like that. Right. But I think the Red Sox are going to be okay. They have a lot of guys who follow that sabermetric path that, Bill James and the owners, the current ownership group have really been trying to go towards, on-base percentage, that kind of thing, WAR. And John Lackey, I think John Lackey, I'm going to go out and say it right now, as much as I don't like John Lackey and how horrible he was last season, he's got a whole year off from Tommy John surgery. He's healthy. I've heard John Farrell say that he's healthy and ready to go. You wouldn't even recognize him because he's looked so good. So I think John Lackey's going to have a good year. I think he's a horse. He's going to need to eat up at least 150 innings for us.
That's bold. That's
I'm just saying,
bold pick.
It's the only thing that you can. I want him to have a good year.
I kind of just want him to go away. I want to somehow not see him playing in a Red Sox uniform anymore.
Who else is going to pitch for them, though, is my question.
I mean, right now we don't really have we just don't have the arms right now.
They signed Victorino.
Yeah.
Who's maybe if the team, my buddy says, in the teams in 09, if this was the team that they are now in 09, then we'd be in good shape. Mike Napoli at the peak of his game. Shane Victorino, all these guys who they've signed, a little bit older age bracket, but they know how to play the game. They come to a big market. They have a chance to at least hang around maybe for that second wild card. With the expansion of the wild card, you never know what happens in the Central, what happens in the West, especially with some realignment going on with the Astros coming to the American League, and they're going to be really bad again. Their salary is their maximum salary on their team is less than the average salary for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be good.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think the Sox will be okay. I think that they will, they'll be okay. They did make some nice moves. I love the Victorino move. I love the way he plays the game. I loved seeing they got Pedro, and I loved seeing how they brought Tech back in. After the whole Terry Francona thing coming out and not bashing because he did do it in a very respectful manner, but saying how he didn't like the way that the team was going and how the ownership really tried to mold a team for a certain image and not really for the wins. And that obviously is great PR. I'm excited. It's spring training. Who knows? We could be the best team in the world and just not know it yet.
Yeah.
It's always a great time.
Chemistry.
Pitchers and catchers report and it's a fun time to be a Boston sports fan. It's always
season,
great.
It's a new, everything's clean slate. We start from the beginning, and it's all you can ask for in baseball, which is such a sport where you need to be repetitive over and over again. You got to have a fresh start.
Yep, exactly.
Here we go in February,
It's going to be fun. We're opening against the Yankees on April 1st, which is always going to be fun.
They like doing that on opening day.
Yeah, right. All right, we're going to move over. To golf.
My subject.
I'm just going to see this one right here. To my golf pro analyst over here. Obviously, a big week for Phil Mickelson.
Right.
Start to finish, just took over a tournament. Almost shot a 59 on the first day, and then
could have shot a 58. Too.
Yeah, and he lipped out for the 59. It was out of control that first round. So obviously, you want to comment on that, but now we have back-to-back weeks of the two biggest names besides, I guess, Rory McIlroy at this point in time.
Over the last decade.
The two biggest names are back-to-back winners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, you can't say enough because the PGA Tour has been increasingly getting younger and younger with the guys winning. Like Russell Henley even came out this year, his first PGA Tour event, of his career, goes out and wins, going away in tremendous fashion, blows away the field. No one's ready for him, and then you come back 4 weeks later and you have Tiger and Phil winning back to back. There's nothing you can do about that. So it's good to see, guys on the PGA Tour who are older still playing and still keeping in shape. I actually want to talk about Vijay Singh was admitted that he used deer antler spray, which is a known performance-enhancing drug, to work harder and to practice more. And he's admitted that. And I don't think he tested positive. I'm not sure what their testing regime actually is, but so the deer antler spray, which is kind of big to me because he's always been expressed as a hard worker, and now seeing
and that's
him,
that is crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Especially. I would like to know what age he started using it, because it's been over the last year. He won one tournament last year, I think, and he's had a scatter of 4 or 5 in the past couple of years. Hasn't really been all that effective in a major. I think his highest is about 5th place finish or 3rd place finish at the Masters 2 years ago, I think. So he hasn't been all that effective. So if he's starting to use this now, I don't want to say that I'll kind of let him off the hook because it's cheating, but. He's just trying to get back into the game that he's no longer dominating. And for so long, he and Tiger were it. But it's so surprising to me that in golf you have PEDs. I didn't think that would be the sport to,
Well, like when Tiger came on the tour in the early 90s, he forced everybody to get back into the gym.
Yeah.
Because there was not a single player on tour, maybe a few, who worked out on a semi-regular basis. And then Tiger Woods comes out, wins several events in his first year and is in incredible shape and forces the entire tour to get fit. Now, if you're not in the gym, you're not on the tour. It's as simple as that. So you herald a guy like like Vijay Singh for working so hard and hitting endless. I mean, everybody talks about that. The one thing you know about Vijay Singh, even if you don't know much about golf, is that he works hard. But to see him using these, and I understand where he's coming from because, like you said, he doesn't dominate a game that's dominated by young men now. There are guys younger than both of us who have already won the PGA Tour in the past 3 years, and or who are playing for the Ryder Cup. Rory McIlroy is our age.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see that guys who are 45 and past 40, almost 50 years old are competing with guys who are 22 years old in the prime athletic shape of their lives.
That's a great point.
That's why it's such a great sport.
It really
always maintain that.
It's so cool. I want to move in real quick. So this past week, Kyle was down in Florida, in Orlando, and he was at the PGA show, and trying to troll for some jobs, which I believe.
Networking.
Yeah. I believe we were a little successful.
There was. I did some networking down there for sure. There's a couple different companies who I met with, and I have a couple more interviews for assistant professional jobs around the area. So hopefully we can find something this season so we can get the PGA career started.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'll see you on the tour. I can be instead of debating you, I can be watching. I can be debating about you.
Yeah, I don't think I quite have the game.
I wanted to move into a segment with Kyle and ask him a little bit about this PGA Tour event and see what his thoughts were on the whole experience. Around the valley here, above the lovely Spirit House Liquor Store, talking to PGA expert and host Kyle Miklinevich. Kyle recently made the trip down to lovely Orlando for the PGA Merchandise Show. Kyle, what is the PGA Merchandise Show exactly? Who is there, and what's the deal with it?
Yeah, the PGA Merchandise Show is one of the best places on the planet. I'll put it that way. It's basically just where even small and large, businesses in the golf industry go to exhibit their products or their services. It's like a big convention hall where everyone gets together. They have their own booth. They have their setups. They have their displays. They let people try their new products. Deals are made. Business is done. Interviews are conducted, that kind of thing. It's just a big networking event where everyone from the industry can come to help each other and help themselves. People find jobs, that kind of stuff. It's pretty one of the best experiences I've had in a long time. It was really good to go down. My first year was this year, but I'd heard about it from my head pros for a long time, so it was definitely good to get down there.
Now, what were some great moments that happened? Because it sounds like this is just terrific.
Yeah, it was awesome. When we first got out there, the first day, Wednesday, was demo day. We got there a little bit late because our flight came in at 10 and the show started at 9. So we got over to Orlando from Tampa at about noon. Got on the range by 1 or so, and the first exhibit we saw was the Nike hitting area. So they had speakers and a microphone, and they had a host who was talking about the players, and they had the players who were hitting their clubs on launch monitors, and they were taking their data. So the first player I see out there is Ken Griffey Jr. And I'm like, is that Ken Griffey Jr.? I knew it. I could tell it was him just by looking at him, and they finally announced him. Everyone was gathering around. I was probably 5 rows deep. Finally, I worked my way up and got a good picture of him. And he was hitting these big 285-yard drives with a little bit of draw, just out of the left-handed side, which is fun to watch, Yeah, exactly. And Ron Harper was there from the World Champion Chicago Bulls. He's a lot bigger than you thought. He's 6'5", you don't think it's that big, but you get up to him and huge, But then, I went all the way around. TaylorMade was really impressive. They have, they come out with just the top of the line. They're constantly marketing their product. They're trying to separate themselves, to a whole new class. To they play for every golfer, the tour player and the average golfer. For the clubs, the most part, I was impressed with the way the Nike Covert driver played. The cavity back driver, which is the new thing. Rory's using it. Tiger's going to be switching to it soon. That played really well. So did their 3-wood, which I really liked. Just for irons, the Titleist cavity backs, beautiful. Ford CBs, they're beautiful. They're just like the ones I hit now currently, so it was a really easy adjustment. The Mizuno MP69s, really nice club, really easy to hit for a blade. Right. It was just a good time.
Sounds pretty cool. And just speaking to some of the, you were talking about the Cobra and the Puma being, up and comers, and Mizuno obviously is not known for incredible irons, although, their short game stuff, their sandwiches are terrific. That's my sandwiches, Mizuno. But yeah, I just want to get a feel for what you saw was new in the industry, where you think, some companies are separating themselves. Or
TaylorMade is definitely trying to separate themselves in the marketing aspect. Their booth was it was closed in. You had to go through 2 different tunnels to get there, and you get in there and it's all black on the inside with crazy lights, and they had their own little small hitting area indoors with a big net. They had drinks and they had music, and then it's some lady dangling from a chandelier. It's just honestly, you couldn't even describe it. If I don't have a picture for you, I wouldn't be able to describe it. They just went over the top. So it's like cool things like that, but it was definitely good to see a lot of the new clubs because that's what I'm most excited about. As a club junkie, I like all the new technology. But it's just good to see how many young kids, young people were there, because statistically, I guess the game of golf is not gaining any more players because as people who play at older age pass, new players come into the game. So technically, you're not growing the game, but it's definitely getting younger, which is what I like to see.
It absolutely sounds out of this world.
Next year, you come down with me.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, let's hope that you got a job down there next year and you can be giving me some free clubs. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounds amazing, and loved hearing about the experience.
All right, thanks.
All right, that was great. So cool to hear the stories. It's an incredible place to be.
Yeah, it was a really fun time.
Yeah.
One of the funner things I've done in a long time.
All right, so here we go. We are going into the nerve-wracking People's Championship vote. So I'm going to look at my lovely crew, and they are going to get 30 seconds to vote on which one of our studly co-hosts here can who won it. Yeah, really cool about Florida.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Meeting Ken Griffey Jr., that was pretty much
You're
fun.
right, that's
Yeah,
out of control. It's so ridiculous.
Just saw him walking down. He was like walking with like one other guy.
Looks like he gained a little weight, though.
He was a little bit round, but I mean, like I always thought he was like tall. He was like 6'1",
All right. Ooh, here we go. I can't win. I'm
give it to
0
me?
for 2,
yeah.
and we're still in the season here at Around the Valley. And this week we added a little
my.
dinosaur guy just because we love you. And so, yeah, People's Championship, Kyle, all you.
All right, thanks, Will. I really appreciate it. This is my first time here on Around the Valley. I'm excited to be with you guys. So as the People's Champ today, I'm going to talk a little bit about performance-enhancing drug use because I feel like that's been a pretty prevalent topic in sports over the last several years, whether it be baseball, which we've all been versed over many times, but more recently golf, and there's some speculation that some other players in football and things like that are using as well. I've always maintained that the PED issue will be prevalent in sports, throughout time. Athletes are always going to try to do something to gain an advantage on their opponents, and that's just competitive nature. Who's to say where to draw the line? So we need to draw the line where we're going to start punishing these athletes, or if we're just going to let it go for what it is. But I'll always maintain that that until we make the penalties for using PEDs severe enough that they outweigh the rewards, that's when athletes will stop using.
Well, then, that is it for this week on Around the Valley. I would like to just quickly send out a rest in peace to Caleb Moore, the X Games athlete who passed away. And that does it for us this week. Have a great week.